I wanted to talk about why I wrote that book. I have written 8 other books before that on creativity, on the process. And that's the first time I'm writing a book that is personal. And this is something I didn't want to do for a long time. I thought there was no point to it. And now, you know, with time passing, I just have felt that it might be maybe of interest to see how a life of somebody develop as they keep painting their whole life. Because it's a question I asked myself at the very beginning, my first few months of painting. I asked myself, what will you do if you, what will happen to you? How will your life is going to go if you keep painting your whole life? You know? And that was quite a question. And now in my 70s, I say, okay, I can answer that question now. So I thought I will talk about my personal life and not as a model. And I think it has to be very understood. It's just to show that when you keep being creative and you keep being intuitive, things happen in your life. It liberates different dimensions inside of you. It's not intellectual, it's not psychological, but different dimension about what life is and what, you know, about the mystery of life. I'm very interested in the mystery of life, and we all have a sense of the mystery. So in a way, I could say that I wrote this book so I could explain my own mystery, and it does not mean everybody is not going to have their own journey. Of course, everybody will have their own special journey. So it was very difficult to pick up some paragraph and some story in the book, because as you see, it's a very big book, and there are stories that are completely different, very intense and very striking, and sometimes very, very different. So so anyway, I did my best to pick up what I could, but at the beginning, you want to know that these stories were not written at the same time. They were written along the years. Every time something I felt important happened to me because of the painting or related to the painting, I will write spontaneously, not knowing what I will do with it or if I'll do anything. So a couple of years ago, I started putting all this story together, and then I added, of course, I wrote a little more because a few more years had passed, and then with the help of an editor, we just made a book out of it, and I started at my birth. So you can see the whole journey from birth to now of what happened if you are interested. So here I'm going. So the first chapter I'm going to read from is called Piercing the Veil. All right. I hope you can understand my accent. I was born in Marseille, in the south of France, during World War II. And when I came out, I had questions hanging all over my body. When I say I was born with a lot of questions, I'm not exaggerating. Since then, I have carried them with me like a second skin. Nobody could ever clear them up. God knows, my mother tried to distract me from them, tried to give me a normal childhood with normal thoughts and desires. I am not sorry to tell you that she failed dramatically. Trying to explain me to her friend, hoping to make acceptable everything unfamiliar about me, Mama often settled by saying, "Oh, Michele, she's an artist." That one little word will cover up mountain of disparate quality and behavior, and people, after giving me a curious look, will leave me alone. From the very start, as I moved into life's great mysteries, artistry was my umbrella and my refuge. I could say I have had an interesting life, but that wouldn't really tell you much. Perhaps I should use the word peculiar or unusual instead. I'm only an artist. The fire of creativity has burned in me since I was born. If I don't paint, I write. If I don't write, I draw or make up things. But whatever I do, I won't stop. At times, the need to paint would wake me up at night and keep me awake until I surrendered to it. I had no choice, really, if I wanted to sleep. First, I had to paint. I secretly enjoy the demand of that relationship So I complained to it. You have some guts, asking me to get up in the middle of the night. Do you think I've not done enough during the day? What do you want from me? My life? So, and then I'm going to go to the next little story, which called A Crack in My World. And it's something that happened when I was 9 years old. And that really had a big effect on my life. So the town of Hyères, where I spent most of my childhood, was just 10 miles away from the Mediterranean. And when I was 9, my family moved to a from a three-bedroom city apartment to an unfinished house my parents were building on top of a hill with spectacular view of the sea. La Colline du Paradis, it was called, Paradise Hill. Shortly after the move, my mother, with great eagerness, fulfilled her long-time dream, purchasing her first typewriter. It was a big event. The whole family gathered around it, marveled at the beauty and ingenuity of such a machine. The shiny black keyboard, the compact round black letters that moved back and forth so gracefully, the black and red ribbons. I was dying to use it. My mother refused, but I didn't take no for an answer. After a month of relentless effort, I was granted permission to use the precious instrument. On that fateful afternoon, a spring day, I sat down at the desk in the den with enormous anticipation. I religiously approached the typewriter and carefully typed. There was once a little girl. I watched the delightful magic of letters neatly printing on paper. The other children were away, and I was alone in the house. It was remarkably quiet. Suddenly, with no warning, I felt an unusual presence in the room. I lifted my head and looked across the desk. Standing there was a small, blond boy watching me with great interest and intensity, his hands clenching the desk to prop himself on his toes to see me typing. He wore a simpler plaid shirt with button and short beige pants. No more than 5 or 6 years old, it seems to be a likable child. Only he was not human. I could see through him. My heart almost broke out of my chest in shock. I jumped from my chair and ran outside until I found a real person, in real flesh, my mother, who was in the laundry shed. I spent a few moments staring at her, mute. What's happening? She asked, alarmed. Nothing, nothing, I answered, still out of breath. I already knew that certain things could not be told. I needed time to think. That event was a defining moment because my childhood stopped there. What was I going to do with an experience that crossed the boundary of human reality, of acceptable reality? What could I do? That night, I cautiously approached my father and asked him, do ghosts exist? He assured me that they don't. I insisted. No, he said sharply, there is no doubt about that. I went to ask my mother and I got the same answer. A few days later, I read on the second page of my parents' daily newspaper, Le Figaro, that a man living in an old castle in the south of France had heard noises in the middle of the night and had subsequently seen a ghost in chains. Triumphant, I showed my father the article. Look, the paper said, ghosts exist. Oh no, he answered, you can't believe everything you read in the paper. They make up story all the time. And without any further, he turned his head away to signal that he wouldn't talk about the matter again. I was dumbfounded by his words. Warning bells were ringing, but I alone heard them. My parents admitted of what much of what they read every day in the newspaper was valueless or even an outright lie, and yet they kept reading it. The world of grown-up was definitely confusing. I saw two options for myself. If my parents were right, my brain was infected with an inexplicable virus, and I was a delusional child, a freak. But if they were ignorant and enclosed in their own narrow belief, I would have to live in a world where I didn't belong. Okay, this one is a birth of creative passion. I thought getting married and having a child would dispel my question about life and offer new meaning, but deep down, nothing had really changed. I was 22-year-old and I had given birth to my son Philip 6 months earlier. I had been caught in the game of living a traditional life, and I had to admit it was not working for me. After giving up law to go for what I love most, I explored art school and registered for various classes with great expectation. Quite quickly, however, I became disillusioned, never finding what I was looking for. Maybe I was not meant to be an artist. I had to let go of my dream, and it was very sad. Finally, I decided to give up painting and art altogether, on the advice of my last art teacher. Painting is not for you, Michele. Do something else. One day, however, I got an idea. If I could not paint, maybe I could guide others in painting. I could become an art facilitator. In Paris, a series of coincidences put me in touch with a free expression studio for children in the heart of the Latin Quarter. I was to be an observer as part of the teacher painting program. When I arrived at the children painting studio that first day, I had no idea what to expect. Stepping through the multicolored door in the painting studio, I faced a magical sight. The room was vibrating with mysterious, lively energy. Colors were floating in the air, imbued of a deep sense of power. A dozen little bodies were pouring out form and images spontaneously. Sheltered from judgment, criticism, and competition, these children were giving themselves to the natural process of self-expression, to the pulse of creation. The studio was a very small room without window, a sort of colorful room, a place that offered no contact with the outside world and no possible intrusion. In this room, every feeling had its place. The deep tension of the psyche, the mysterious longing, the dark feeling, the ancient aches, all were carried spontaneously by the river of life, exposed, reconciled, whole. There was nothing to hide, nothing to pretend. There was no success or failure, no shame or pride. There was nothing special to achieve, no problem to resolve. I asked permission to paint with the children, and it was granted. When I first held the brush and touched the paint, my emotion was strong. What an enchanting feeling to paint in that context. The vortex of creation among the children embraced me, absorbed me, cradled me. I instantly gave up product, progress, and goal, entering with wonder into pure process. I had finally found a place where I belong. In the space of a few days, I metamorphosed into another type of human being. My entire behavior, my taste, my goals, and my way of life was fully transformed. It was as though I had shed a thick skin that all this time had prevented me from being my true self. Suddenly, instead of repeating what I had learned or heard, I was thinking for myself, producing original thoughts about art, life, and spirit.
Michele, I've read most of the book. I think I'm down to the last chapter. You have many specific visions.
Yes.
And I want to know, how do you view them in your life? I mean, how real are they to you?
Are real what?
How real are your visions?
Well, they're real.
For you? I mean,
yeah, for me, they are real. They are my, that's why I say everybody is going to have their own experience. But when you paint images, and when you have vision, you see them. It's the same thing. I mean, they can talk, they can move. I mean, it's like you see them. What does that mean? I don't know, but it's just, what it means is that the dimension in which you live your life, we are not what we think we are. When we brought up, we are this little person, I think I'm Michelle, and then things happen, and then you paint, and you crack boundaries. And at a certain point, when you crack boundary, the dimension of your life cracks also, they expand. That's why I say I had cracks, happening inside. And when the dimension cracks, you see the different level of being, of life, if you want to call it, or spirit. You see different dimension, and you see very clearly, like it's almost like a roof is cracking, and all of a sudden there is space. And in that space, you see things, or you don't. But I mean, you feel different, you sense differently. And then you keep going, and then another roof, another blanket just pull off, and then you can see, and you discover other things. And that's what I discovered about the painting. There is no end to the discovery, because I feel for myself, in my life, I was like under, all kind of roofs and blanket and cover and lids that were preventing me to really see. And our eyes can see a lot of things. That's why the painting process, when you move into intuition, instead of relying on what you have learned, like what people have told you, what's real, what's not real. That's why I put that little story before. It was just one little story when I was a kid. But it's like you start questioning what you have learned. But it happens intuitively. It's not your mind doing things. And as the intuition is breaking through all the law people have put down for you, the principle, they tell you the rules, they say this is like that, this is like that. You are Michelle, and Michelle is that. Michelle is this kind of person, and she has to live her life as a Michelle. And when you start painting, you don't have to live your life as a Michelle. You have to live your life as destiny, as God, as spirit wants you to live it. You see, you let go of the constricted image of who you think you are. And when you do that, the thing that happens is, the old mind, we call it miraculous, but it's not miraculous. It's common sense. You break dimension, you see new things. And new things that helps you, because anytime you break a dimension in a way, you are embraced by more space. You are embraced by more life, by more truth. And then it wants you to know. It wants you to move into it. It wants you to belong to where you belong, instead of being, like I call myself, I was a second-hand person. That's the way I call myself before I painted. Because I was just taking what other people gave me and reproduce it and give it. So you see what I mean? So everything, like in our life, before we enter intuition, we take everything for serious. A pair of glasses is serious, a piece of paper, everything is serious. And then you realize that the vision you can have can be so different and so extremely interesting. And what's interesting about it, it makes you extremely happy. when you crack a dimension, when you crack a level of being, and you see something you have never seen before, because everybody is constantly looking for something new, and especially the people that paint. They want to do something new, they want to feel something new. So when you meet something new, your heart open and you joy, I mean, you are so happy that it happens. Because it's completely new, and because you realize you could have died without seeing it. And it's such a gift. So, and like I say, this is my personal experience that I dare to put out in the world. I always thought I will only put it after I die. But for some reason, I'm old enough, I have decided to do it now. And so this is, but it's different for everyone. But anything that's going to come when you pierce a dimension, as you enter the intuitive process, you're going to see it gives you some feeling you never had before, some joy, some realization, some insight. It brings some insights, you know. And what everybody does, you know, and all the Buddhists and the people, they meditate because they want to get insight. So the painting process is a process. Sometimes I compare it to a big building, like a 60-floor building, you know, and you start in the basement, you know, and you crack. And then, oh, you discover the second floor, and the first floor, it is fantastic. And then you think you have seen everything that could be seen, and you discover another floor and another floor. So life becomes something very different. That's what I say, I metamorphose into a different kind of being. Because all of a sudden, I realized that possibilities were extreme. There was so much potential that was there if I was going for it. And I had been given a tool. I was very, very lucky to have been given that tool. Sometimes when I think if I missed it, I don't know what my life would have been. But you see, it works like that. You move from one floor to another floor, and it brings you back to the mystery. You see, when you are a child, if you remember how you were when you were a child, I do remember I had a sense of mystery that slowly was kind of strangled by education, you know, like you had to behave a certain way, the good and the bad was that, you know, all that. But underneath you have a sense of mystery, and you were wondering why people don't live with that mystery, because I can feel it. So as you keep painting and you start getting rid of all this coating that has been put on you of conditioning, of belief, then you just open back up in the mystery. And that's one of the things I felt when I started painting. I felt inside myself, like the very first few weeks I was painting, the sense of mystery was getting awakened inside of me. And so that's what, and when you do that, you know, you can have all kinds of weird things to write on a book, you know, strange experiences. But I think it's important, it was important for me to put them in because I wanted people to know that they could break boundaries, they could break dimension and find incredible things there. That the mind first will say, no way, you know, that does not work, that's not possible. But I say when you break, you know, the container, when you break the prison, you know, of believing everything as it is, it just opens up. So what do you think?
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Do you want to hear me? I don't read English very well. I know I'm hard to understand sometimes. Do you want me to read one more thing, or do you want?
Your English is beautiful.
Oh.
It's still Ellen. The other question I had was, when you were writing this, did you think in French or did you think in English?
No, in English. I've been living in this country for so long. I'm so much longer than I was in France, you know, so it's still my maternal language. But at the beginning, I didn't know how to write because I was writing in French. I was trying to translate it, and then I became too English, and now it just moved in English. I know a little less word in English, and sometimes that bothers me because the French language has so many words, and I have not learned all of them, but I managed.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so I have another one. So this is a very strange story. You know, I moved, when I came to America, I was on the East Coast, and I drove cross country to California that I had heard of for a long time. I was curious to see California and what it has to offer. I heard it was a new world. Everything, every idea was accepted and everything. Anyway, so I came. And I came and I rented a little room in Mill Valley. There was a house, communal house, where people were renting a little room. And I rented a little room with my boyfriend, and that's one of the stories that happened. And I started painting a lot. I was able to find paints and paper in Mill Valley, and I started painting. And this is a very strange story, but it's a story that is, the name of it, it's called The Man with the Elephant Head. So already it's a little strange. So it's a little story, it's not very long, I'm going to read it. I woke up in the middle of the night in shock, propelled into the air a couple of feet above my bed. Why did you do that? I screamed in panic and anger at my boyfriend. You could have killed me. As unbelievable as it sounds, I had actually flown into the air. I felt someone had pressed a finger in the middle of my forehead very hard and pushed on it, and a flood of energy just came out. That touch gave me such a strong jolt, I thought I might have died. I turned towards my boyfriend who was sleeping beside me. The moonlight was shining in the room through the skylight, but he was nowhere to be seen. I couldn't believe what my eyes saw instead. Lying close to me in my double bed was a big red man with an elephant head. Perhaps I was still asleep. I immediately pinched my arm and keep pinching to wake myself up. But it didn't work. I kept pinching. My eyes went from that bizarre creature to the wall, to the chair, to the bed, and back to the creature again. He wouldn't disappear. The red elephant was there to stay. Trembling from toes to head, my heart pounding, I sat on the mattress, back against the wall, waiting for that strange apparition to go away. After what seemed like a very long time, it finally faded. By the next morning, I still felt that short jolt on my forehead, and current of energy were running in through my body for 3 days and 3 nights. I kept shaking. No matter where I looked, my perception was altered, as if my eyes were looking from outside my head. I went to the Mill Valley Library to find information on that mysterious red apparition. After a long search, I recognized a man with an elephant head in a book of mythological Indian gods. His name was Ganesh. A good omen. Ganesh traditionally appears at the beginning of a spiritual journey and wishes good luck to the traveler. I had no knowledge of him prior to that day and was amazed I had been able to receive his blessing in spite of my ignorance. For years, I had lived through transcendental experience, seen ghosts, connected with the heart of animals, traveled outside my body, and felt the spiritual and mystical flow of life. Now I had received the most unexpected, astounding visit from unknown dimension. Was I connected at all times with these invisible worlds? Did my paintbrush open a hidden door that day? One thing was certain. The invisible and the unimaginable had entered my life and revealed some of their secrets. I knew deep within myself that this mysterious event had happened through the intuitive creative process. And I could sense that the journey I was on was just beginning. That was a strange experience, huh? But, you know, he just tells you all this mystery. You don't put it together. You just have to let it flow through you. Mm. Any question? You want maybe a story that is more acceptable? I have one that's much more acceptable. Where is it?
So I have a question. You know, the few times throughout the book, you talk about dreams that you've had, just like this one with Ganesh. And then there's a painting. And what'd you say?
It was not a dream.
Oh yeah, or not dreams. You know, experience. I'm sorry, I misspoke. It's actually experiences that have happened, and so there's different experiences, and then some. You know, and then you have a painting, and I'm wondering which came first, the painting, or did you have an experience and then the painting emerged from those experiences?
No, what happened is that I was painting a lot for a few weeks, I say, and when you paint a lot, you open the new dimension, and out of the dimension, Ganesh appeared. I didn't know about him before. After I was drawn to painting, but it came afterwards when he had already manifested. But it could happen in any other way. The point is to open the dimension, is to crack the ceiling, and then, you know, whatever you need to know will come to you.
Martin and Trudy wanted to know, when did you decide you had to teach others this process?
Well, I decided very soon because I thought I could have missed it. And it was my life. It was everything in my life. It was the main thing, the most beautiful thing I had. So I thought I had to pass it along. And I didn't want to be a teacher. I never wanted to be a teacher. But I thought I had to pass it along. What if some people need it as much as I do? You know, so I decided immediately. I started having people coming in my house to paint, my friends, but no, they were not too interested. So I was trying to attract them by cooking dinner first, so they will come. So after dinner, I had them paint a little bit, and but you know, that's the way it started, very, very slowly like that. And then I started having children because children were more open at the beginning, and then I started teaching, you know, in school. And and I started teaching handicapped children. So it just developed slowly. And of course, at the beginning, I didn't know anything. I thought that was the most important thing, was to never tell children what to do, or anybody, to never influence anybody. Because I know for me, it was when I was really free that it started. So I had that, you know, inside of me, like, don't influence people in any way. But then I realized when I didn't say anything, they lose energy. They wouldn't really do much. So I started developing my teaching, you know, routine, my teaching, you know, how to talk to people so they will go further. And I have developed some more. Actually, I'm still writing another book for the advanced people now. It's like it does not stop happening. I think I'm done. Every time I write a book, I say it's the last one. And every time another one come up because I have new ideas, you know, about how to talk about this thing. Yeah. So the last story I'm going to read is a story about a painter painting a ceiling, which is me. My new husband and I lived in a very small apartment. So when my parents moved to Nîmes in the south of France, we saw a great opportunity to move into their place for a while near the Champs-Élysées. There was possibility. The apartment was built in the Louis XV style, with walls covered in intricate vine molding and divided into small panels. There were no large blank walls, but there were ceilings. They were framed with complex, stylish design, but all I saw was virgin space in the center. I wonderfully start for my new dream, painting a ceiling. I wanted to feel what the old master had felt while painting frescoes. I was determined to find out what Michelangelo experienced when painting under the roof, high up close to the sky. But I didn't dare asking my parents' permission. I knew for certain they would have refused. I brought a tall ladder into the living room and started painting that cherished high ceiling in one corner, near the entrance to the room. Within a few hours, I was forced to admit how difficult it was to walk up there. The paint dripped on my face. My neck became more and more sore with every painting minute. It's the price of creativity, I told myself. You must ignore the discomfort. The work was slow, complex, and exhilarating. I had moved away from Earth, suspended in space. I felt free to soar into a new way of creating. With great joy, I painted large images without tracing them in advance. Exotic birds, naked figures, mysterious beings, and planets. It took more than a month to cover the entire ceiling. The painting was bold, vibrant, rich in color, terribly alive. I loved to stand underneath it and feel the ceiling opening into the sky. With my gaze, I could touch the infinite expanse of the universe. After a year in Nîmes, my parents were ready to come back into their apartment in Paris, where they were dismayed with what they saw. They didn't see my achievements, their daughter's unusual creation. They saw only terrible stains and risky images on their prized antique ceiling. The painting contractor was immediately hired. Do you realize, Michelle, we had to pay for 7 coats of white paint to cover what you did there? My mother complained bitterly. I could understand her reaction, and I took it in my stride. It was a reminder. Nothing ever lasts. Everything moves, comes and goes. I had painted right at the edge of the sky, and for me, the experience was priceless. Okay. Any question now? We have a few minutes left. I'll be happy to answer any question. Yeah, there is this lady, Cherie. Oh, Cherie. Hey, you have a question? Or you just
no, I'm just so happy to see you, Michelle. Really wonderful to see you.
This is one of
I can't wait
my first students here in California. And she's still painting.
I'm still painting. I'm still painting many, many years.
Mm-hmm.
And I really appreciate it.
I don't know if I intrigued you, but thank you very much for coming here. I know it's a Saturday morning, you know, you have a lot of things to do probably. And I hope you are all healthy and you're all well in this difficult time. And thank you for taking the time to come here. And thank you for the people that helped me. Cherie, thank you so much for your help, and Anne for your help. I mean, just has been unbelievable.
Well, Michelle, I just want you to know that on the chat that everyone is sharing sending you big hugs, great gratitude, how much of an inspiration you've been to them in their life, and you're getting loads of cyber hugs and loads of appreciation. So I know you can feel it, but just so everybody knows that I know you can feel it. So everybody's saying thank you so much for the impact you've made on their life and your contribution, and the ability to really set a place where permission and freedom is the ultimate.
Oh, that's good. And I'm so happy to see, I see Catherine from Germany. I keep, you know, I see some people I've not seen in a long time, and I thank you so much. And Jack from France has been here for a while. And hey, Phil, oh, you are
We've
here.
got Austria.
Yeah, there is so many people, and it's so hard to see, you know. It's really hard to see and recognize the people right away. Thanks for coming. So thank you all for coming. That's Rami, great.